Imagine a threat that doesn't break through your front door, but slips quietly, literally right under your pillow while you sleep, and it's put there by someone you trust. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're actually going to skip all the usual pleasantries today because we need to dive straight into a forensic breakdown of one of the absolute darkest corners of regional folklore, the Maran Kriya. We're going to analyze the exact mechanics, the terrifying rules, and the deadly consequences of this ancient curse, directly from our source material. So get comfortable, lock your doors, and let's unravel this mystery together. Sin cannot hide in the dark. The Maran Kriya ends only with death. Wow. We're using this chilling quote right out of the gate to establish the extreme stakes of what we're looking at. This isn't just a spell that, gives someone a run of bad luck. The folklore dictates a totally inescapable, fatalistic rule. Once this dark entity is summoned, it absolutely must consume a life. And by the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly why that rule makes the Maran Kriya so extraordinarily dangerous, not just to the victim, but to the caster.
Part 1. The curse takes hold.
Okay, let's dive right into this terrifying crime scene. Sakshi goes from just happily drinking tea in her own home to a state of absolute horror in minutes. The symptoms are incredibly visceral. It starts with sudden, extremely severe headaches that rapidly escalate into violent bodily seizures. Her husband, Raghav, notes that her body temperature drops until she is literally ice cold to the touch. But actually, the psychological symptoms are even worse. Sakshi is hit with intense delirium. She's hallucinating that she's surrounded by fire, screaming that something unseen is violently pulling her down into the darkness. The folklore makes it very clear, this is not an illness. This is an active, aggressive, spiritual assault. Now, what's truly fascinating is how the people around her react to this sudden crisis. Take her logical husband, Raghav. He relies entirely on modern medicine, right? He diagnoses it as brain fever, rushes to find a city doctor, and completely dismisses the local folklore. But then you have the deceptive best friend, Bindia. She just so happens to discover a bundle of black cloth and red thread under the bed, immediately identifies it as Maran Kriya, and points the finger at an outcast village woman named Narmada. But the true psychological horror here, it isn't just the magic itself. It's Bindia's calculated deception. She brilliantly weaponizes Raghav's own logic against him. She uses his blind spot for folklore to misdirect his attention, all while she is the one orchestrating his wife's demise. Part 2. Anatomy of Maran Kriya. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly what the Maran Kriya actually is. According to the text, it is a highly dangerous, hyper-targeted form of black magic. Its specific function is to slowly sicken and ultimately kill its target. But here is the most important mechanic to remember, the absolute law governing this curse. It is a magic that never, ever goes empty. Once it's activated, a life must be paid. Period. It can't just be dissolved or wished away. That lethal energy has to go somewhere. As Raghav aggressively confronts the village woman Narmada, who, remember, he completely believes is the attacker, she gives him this incredibly cryptic, terrifying warning. The poison is not outside your house, it is right inside. This upends the whole narrative. The true threat isn't some distant, shadowy figure lurking out in the woods. It's hiding in plain sight. It is Sakshi's trusted best friend, Bindia, who is secretly orchestrating this entire nightmare out of a jealous obsession to claim Raghav for herself. Now let's look at Bindia's exact step-by-step methodology here, because it is chillingly precise. Working under the cover of darkness right in Sakshi's own bedroom, the ritual requires very specific components. Step 1, applying red sindoor to a lemon. Step 2, taking a lock of the victim's hair. This creates a direct physical link to Sakshi, and that hair is tied to an iron nail. Step 3, the caster has to physically pierce the cursed lemon with that iron nail, which binds the malicious intent directly to the target. And finally, proximity is absolutely key here. The cursed object has to be hidden right under the sleeping victim's pillow. This forensic breakdown really shows us that the Maran Kriya isn't just muttering a few words. It requires physical components, intimate access to the victim, and profound malicious intent. Part 3. The reversal ritual. Before we get into the actual countermeasure, we really have to look at the battle of intentions driving this magic. On one hand, you have Bindia's deception, which is fueled by intense, selfish jealousy. She pretends to care, while actively pushing away real medical help to make sure Sakshi dies. But on the other hand, we have Narmada. She stoically accepts the village's hatred and all of Raghav's threats, yet she sits outside her hut, secretly crushing medicinal roots and dry lemons. Narmada is working entirely in the shadows, Not for glory, not for thanks, but out of a profound protective duty to save the innocent and break this spell. And here is exactly how Narmada successfully intercepts the curse. The countermeasure is probably not what you'd expect. Narmada doesn't burn an effigy of Sakshi to protect her, and she doesn't burn one of Bindiya to attack her either. Instead, she burns an effigy in the forest that represents the dark magic itself. By doing this, she forcefully changes the illness's path. I mean, just imagine the sheer spiritual power required to stand right in the way of a lethal curse, grab it by the metaphysical steering wheel, and force it to completely change direction.
Part 4. The Deadly Consequence.
Okay, remember that golden rule of the Maran Kriya we discussed earlier? It never goes empty. This magic demands death. If the prey survives, it eats the one who cast it. Narmada arrives literally right as Bindiya completes the final step of the curse under Sakshi's pillow, and she declares that she has redirected the magic. Because the curse was blocked from consuming Sakshi, all that lethal energy instantly snaps back to its source, kind of like a massive rubber band. The absolute unbreakable law of the curse is fulfilled. A life must be paid. The punishment that hits Bindiya is visceral, it's immediate, and it perfectly mirrors the exact suffering she intended for her best friend. The reversed magic causes this sudden, suffocating pain in her throat. She collapses to her knees in pure agony, gripping her stomach. She begins violently coughing out blood. Bindiya begs for help, but Narmada coldly states that when the Maran Kriya returns, it only quiets down once its revenge is totally complete. Ultimately, Bindiya is killed by her own greed and the very dark magic she herself unleashed.
Part 5. A Lingering Threat.
The aftermath of all this leaves our main characters in drastically different psychological states. Sakshi wakes up the next morning feeling fully healed, totally healthy. She immediately asks where her dear friend Bindiya is, completely blissfully unaware of the dark betrayal that nearly took her life. But Raghav? His smile vanishes. He's left with his wife safe, which is great, but he is now heavily burdened by an isolating, horrifying truth. He knows the folklore he completely dismissed is real. The true horror isn't just the magic anymore. It's the lingering paranoia of knowing someone they loved, someone they trusted, was capable of this. He now has to figure out how on earth to tell his wife that her best friend tried to murder her right in their own home. But just as we think the book is completely closed on this, the source material leaves us with this final, unsettling detail. On the total opposite side of the village, a strange, unknown woman sits before a fire. She's chanting mantras over burning pictures of both Raghav and Narmada, and she whispers, "The game is not over yet. I will return." It begs the question, was Bindiya acting alone, or is the Maran Kriya part of a much larger, much darker web? Thank you for joining me for this forensic look into the mechanics of the Maran Kriya. If this breakdown sparked your curiosity, keep questioning what really hides in the dark. I'll see you in the next explainer.